can't remember if it was last week or the week before, I went to my old school to talk about employability and leadership to year 8s. And like, I was like, I'm not going to talk at you. I was like, you know, there's loads of other people here that are also doing sessions on other skills and employability, but I'm not going to talk at you because I remember what it was like in year 8. I hated people talking at me like I was a child. You know, you're in secondary school, you're getting ready to develop yourself to go to the real world. And I was like, it's going to be interactive. You need to have a conversation with me. I've given up my time. I've given up a whole day of my time to come talk to you. So like, talk to me. What do you think leadership is? What do you think makes a good leader? Like, how can you do? And like, they were just so quiet. And, you know, like barely had anything to say. And I was thinking, you know, like, I get it's probably a little bit intimidating, and I probably do come across as a bit intimidating to maybe a group of year 8s. But yeah, the fact it was so quiet and no one had any idea of like what leadership is, or like, you know, and I kept saying to them, being a leader is about making mistakes. So like, even if you say something and you think it's wrong, how are you going to know it's wrong until you've just done it? And that's what I mean, like, because they're not told that this is what something is.
Where do you think that mindset's come from? Because by the way, I love that whole thing of like, just do it and then figure it out. Like that's my, like, and I'm not afraid to do stuff and it go wrong.
Yeah.
Like I actually am more afraid to not do stuff and then get to the end of my life and be like, fuck, I wish I'd done that thing. Where do you think that's come from? Because obviously it sounds like you grew up in a very like traditional mum and dad set, like white picket fence setup where you're expected to kind of toe the line. I definitely felt like that as a kid, and we'll dig into, I'm sure, like matching rebellion streaks later. But I was a bad kid, like on paper. Like obviously I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a bad kid on paper. And I think a lot of that came from like pushing back against what I was kind of being kind of forced into. So where do you think that mindset of like, it's okay to like get it wrong has come from?
I think it's just because when I think back at things that I have done, even if it's something like, well, even when I was a kid, like when I played sport, if I made a mistake, it's like learning how to come back from it, and then learn like that lesson being one of the best parts of like my life up to that moment. And you know, the more mistakes I've made, so I've made hundreds. The more mistakes I've made, the more I've developed myself and become a better person. It's so cliche, but like, so I think that's just where I'm like, that's me, that's my leadership style. That's how I've always done things. If I make a mistake, own up to it. Look, how do I come back from this and move on? And I think maybe that's where my mindset came from. It's literally just me making mistakes as a kid. Even if it was something as small as being on the football pitch and taking the wrong shot. Like, how do I come back from that?
Yeah, I love that mindset so much. And something we try and encourage so much at like Klowt. Like I've tried to take a lot of what we're talking about here and like apply that into a work setting, which is can be quite difficult, because I feel like, I mean, I'm sort of Dee sitting here, our social media manager, and I'm sure she'll agree, like I poached her from a previous business that was not corporate, but like had a more traditional setup, and like, not to dig them out or anything, but they had very much like a you have to get it right kind of attitude, or at least the management that like of her and potentially of me had a very much like you have to get this right attitude, and it almost stopped you from taking risks. And then when you stop taking risks, you stop innovating, you stop growing, you stop finding better ways of doing things, because there's no room to grow. Like it's just like, it's just, this is how it's done. And I think that's really dangerous, because particularly when you work in an industry like we work in, which is creative, you know, social media, branding, like you have to be at the forefront of everything. And it's really difficult to do that if you're just doing the same fucking shit as everyone else. Like,
100%. And
the only way I can, like, there's no point in me hiring all these amazing creative people if I'm not going to then give them the freedom to go and fuck up and figure it out. Like, my whole thing is like, we sell social media services basically, like no one's died. Like, as long as no one's like got hurt in this situation, we're okay.
Yeah, and the thing is though, no one's brand is like right 100% of the time. Even if you look at like literally like Instagram, the logos change so many times. It's just something that evolves and changes. And like, that's, I think maybe like with people that I've managed, like, oh, like my leadership style is very different. But I think it shows your weakness as a leader if you're not allowing people that work with you or for you to make mistakes, because then you're too afraid to like have to take the brunt for it or like figure out a solution to fix the problem. And I think that shows a weakness in like your own leadership and their own character.
And probably insecurity.
Yeah.
There's a really good actually quote, I think it's Steve Jobs, who says, there's no point in hiring smart people and telling them what to do. You hire smart people to get them to tell you what to do. And I thought that was like a really good way. Not quite a segue, but a good way to like kind of get into it. Obviously you were on Love Island, like no surprise, like I'm sure everyone knows already, but I don't want to spend a huge amount of time talking about that, because I feel like everyone knows that about you, and a lot of people don't know the Sharon that I've got to know over the last like couple of weeks. But you previously said that you went into Love Island not because it was a reality TV show, but to expand your platform and expand your, I guess, voice for all the other stuff that you're now doing. Like, so talk me through like the thought process, the application process, like what it was like, and like how you've then kind of moved on from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, it started off as a running joke between my friends and I. Like, all my friends are in really stable, serious relationships. Some of them have got children, whereas I'm that friend that's like just floating around. Like, you know, when everyone, you know, when you see on TikTok, like, there's that one friend in the friendship group that like has all the bad dating stories. Like, I'm that friend. So like, it did start off as a bit of a running joke, and like, you know, every time I would see someone and it failed, I'd be like, you know, I'm just gonna apply for Love Island and it'd be fine. So yeah, it did start off as a joke, and then like every stage, every bit closer I got, I was like, oh, like, is this actually gonna happen? And then, you know, I got a phone call, be like, by the way, we want you to fly out to Mallorca in 2 weeks. And then it was that point that I actually had to sit there and think, is this something I genuinely really want to do? And I had to have I had that conversation with my parents as well, because I know that something that big is not just going to impact me, it's going to impact them.
Because it has millions of viewers, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like you going on like, I don't know what the equivalent would be on like even Big Brother. It's like going on Big Brother like back in the day. Like there are millions and millions of people that watch this show. I mean, I have to say I haven't seen a single fucking episode, so I'm very intrigued to. I don't know if I should say that to you.
No, it's fine. Do you know, like I've only ever watched one series of Love Island previous to me going on it, so I felt like I was going in pretty much blind.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what producers really liked, because I was like, you know, I'm not focused on who's made the biggest success out of their Love Island career, or like what character can I replicate, or like all these things. I was pretty much going in blind, and the only reason I watched the other series is because I knew people that were on it, and I would never have watched it if I didn't know them. So, but because I know how much of a big impact it is, I sat down with my parents, and maybe the reason I did want to go on it is, again, rebellion. So my dad was like, why would you do such a stupid thing? He's like, you've got a really good career, why are you going to throw that away to go on TV? And my parents don't watch any reality TV. And I was like, I don't think you realise how big of an opportunity this is. And like, because I hate being told what to do, this is my chance to get into a situation where I have control over the rest of my career, or I can make something really big of myself. And I think I felt annoyed that maybe my parents didn't trust me to not do something that would monumentally fuck up my career.